I thought I'd let you guys talk a little bit about improv, and I'll just sit here and soak it in.
It's little things like that that can really blow an audience's mind because they don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
How do you practice or train, or are there rules?
It's working at the top of your intelligence.
I wanted to talk about the top of your intelligence earlier when you were talking about dildo.
Yes.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. How do you know what to do?
You have to have each other's back, which is why you never say no.
I can see how that can really benefit business in general, especially in commercial real estate.
You wouldn't have been able to do that if you're just focused on yourself and trying to sell yourself. I don't think anybody else would think, except for a commercial real estate professional. Squirrel, nut, tree, septic system.
Yeah.
What's up, Bo?
How are you?
Good. What are you teaching me today?
Nothing.
Nothing.
This episode is all about me. So we have a special guest today.
Ooh.
Her name is Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, say your last name.
It's phonetic. It's Demeroutis.
Demeroutis.
It looks scary, but
Okay.
it's not.
Yeah, I was afraid to say it. So she was my student in the 102 class that we did 6 weeks ago in Tucson, Arizona. And she is a part of PyCore. And PyCore is run by my good friend, Barbie Reuter. Shout out to Barbie.
What's up, Barbie?
Is one of Barbie's folks. But I got to know her during the course. And when she was introducing herself on day one, she says, she's into improv. And I was like,
Yeah.
I know somebody else that's into improv.
That's right.
I thought I'd let you guys talk a little bit about improv, and I'll just sit here and soak it in, because I do have questions. Because improv is one of those things, like when I see you guys do it, it blows me away. Like I have how do you come up with this? How do you do it? How do you practice or train, or are there rules? Like I've got so many questions on how this is done. And
Awesome.
so I thought we could talk some about that. And then, I also know that Second City does corporate trainings and stuff like that. So there's gotta be, improv skills that are incredibly applicable to the business world and to commercial real estate. And so
Very much so.
I would love to learn about some of that.
Yeah.
Especially with the two of you, and kind of just press play and let you guys go.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah?
Yes, I absolutely love this. I love this.
Okay.
I love it.
Well, good. Timmy, meet
Yes.
Alex. Alex, meet Timmy.
Alex, welcome.
Yeah. Welcome to Commercially Speaking.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, before we jump into any of that or answering any of your questions, Alex, will you just tell us about yourself? Give us a 5-minute origin story.
Yeah.
I'm a native Tucsonan, which is kind of unusual. We're a very transplanty place because people from the coasts retire here. So we have college kids at the University of Arizona, and then we have a lot of retired people.
Yeah.
So yeah, to have middle-aged native Tucsonans is we're rare. So I went to U of A. My degree is in marketing, actually. So I did some stuff in the marketing realm, and I was a vice president at a chamber of commerce for 8 years. And then my best friend's husband, he's in commercial real estate, and his partner and mentor passed away unexpectedly. And I was sort of at a place, and it's do I want to be in the chamber world forever, be a president and CEO, and I could see what that path was, or do I want to join him and try something different? So I joined him, and I would say for the first month, I cried.
Oh, you did?
I was like, oh dear God, I made a terrible mistake.
Well, that was my experience when I got into commercial real estate.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I got out of the Marine Corps.
Cried?
No, I cried in boot camp a few times, for sure.
Yeah.
Did you?
Marines can cry.
I remember going to church that first Sunday, and, they'd wrecked your world with all this stress. Everything's different. They shave your head. They take away your identity. Everything looks the same. And then you go to church, and you sing the songs that you sang at home. And I just lost it. There's no drill instructors yelling at you for an hour. And I feel like I sobbed for 45 minutes.
Wow. I've never heard that story.
Yeah, well, it's not my favorite story.
Sure.
I got out of the Marine Corps. I was a sergeant. I was a platoon sergeant.
Yeah.
I had some responsibility. I was good at what I did. I was competent. I got out of the service one day. I started working with Dad the next day, and there was a laptop on a desk. And And I sat down and I didn't have a clue what I was supposed to do. Like it was, what have I done?
Right.
Like, I hope I'm good at this.
Right.
Like, I hope I like this.
Right.
Because I just moved the family back home and,
Right.
And I figured out pretty quick that I thought I was going to like it and stuff.
I kind of felt that way when I went into improv, Alex, because I was doing theater. I studied theater, script. I always loved improv. I always thought I'd be good at it. But like actually going into it was very difficult because, well, I had kind of a big ego too. I thought I was such a good actor. But then you go and it's like you really have to put yourself out there and fail and be hilariously not funny and look like an idiot. What about your improv background?
Sort of opposite of you. I've always like my secret like childhood dream was to act, but I am like pragmatic, so I went to college and got a business degree and all of that. And I saw like a sponsored post for an improv class in Tucson, and I was like, well, I guess I could, like, this is like the thing I want to do. I can try, and if I hate it, then whatever. I don't ever have to go back or show my face again. And I loved it. That was 7 years ago.
I just had this image in my head of you showing up to improv class, for the first time, and it being like Michael Scott on The Office.
Yeah.
Going to improv class and just being, that's what I thought of. You walking in, sitting next to Michael Scott. And it probably wasn't like that, though.
It's more of, I don't know how your first class was to me, but it's more of a like lots of group games, like come up with a adjective that starts with B for Bo, and you would be like, I'm Bodacious Bo, and then like a movement to go with it, and you could just sort of be really weird.
Oh yeah, those level 1 classes are full of games, just a lot of games to get you in the mindset of listening, being present, and not thinking too much, which is what it's all about.
Now that explains why I'd be terrible at this.
Well, yeah, which would also be a great thing to exercise.
I find that people who take an improv class believe that they're funny. You're not really going to take it if you think that you're like not funny, but you take it because you're like, I'm really funny, and then you realize that it's not about you at all. It's about being like a really good teammate, or whatever you want to call it, a good player.
When you're trying to be funny, doing an improvised scene, it always falls flat because you're not in the scene creating the story with your partner.
You could tell me about your improv.
Oh yeah, sure. Since I was like 15 years old, I was looking up how to get on Saturday Night Live, and that's when I learned about the Second City. And I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. So I went to college for theater, lost my scholarship at 2 different colleges. And at the second one, my advisor was like, you don't have to go to college if you are going to be an actor. Like, you go on. In Memphis, I was delivering pizzas and doing theater, which paid nothing. And I was about to be evicted because I couldn't pay my rent. And at the same time, I had my best friends from high school give me a call and say that they were in Nashville and that they wanted me to be in their rock band. So I moved to Nashville. I was like, oh, this is perfect timing. So I went to Nashville and I played in a band with them for 2 years. And then after that, I was at home. I was kind of depressed for 6 months. And that's when I started listening to WTF with Mark Maron. And that kind of saved me at that time. But anyway, I applied to be a part of the Improv for Actors program at the Second City. Bo was taking a trip to Chicago. Was like, hey, do you want to come and ride with me? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. That'd be awesome. So Bo and I drive up there. He goes and does his meetings, and I just go to the Starbucks that's in the same building as Second City, and I cannot go in because I have not heard back from this class whether or not I've been accepted or not. So I'm like, I can't walk in there. And I can't walk in there. What if I'm like, just all this crazy fear, putting this up on a pedestal. Just, oh man, this is it.
Well, didn't you get the call while we were there?
While I'm in Starbucks, I get the email that I got accepted. And in that moment, I walk right in. I was like, let me see it. I'm going to be a student here. Hey. And then I had a friend who introduced me to somebody that was working there. And she gave me a tour and was just super nice, and I was so excited. And then like a couple months later, I moved to Chicago and started that class. So I went through the Second City Conservatory. They had a musical improv conservatory I went through. I did those about the same time. They overlapped. And so it was about a year and a half when I completed that. I took a class at IO and ended up doing a ton of stuff at the Annoyance Theater. I'm not sure how familiar you are with those theaters.
Our audience probably doesn't know what IO is.
It formerly known as Improv Olympic.
Okay.
Yeah, so Second City and IO are like an Upright Citizens Brigade, which is in LA and New York. Those are probably the most well-known improv and sketch comedy theaters, where Saturday Night Live and most of the comedic actors that we know has gone through one or been on stages in all those theaters. And then the Annoyance as well. After I completed the program, I was invited to audition for their Norwegian cruise line. They had a contract with Norwegian Cruise Lines. So Second City was on 3 of those ships as the entertainment. And I auditioned for that, and I got that. And so I did 2 contracts with them, 2 form-of contracts on a cruise ship, which was super fun. That's where I met my wife, who's from Ireland, which is amazing. And then after that, I started teaching for the Second City and got involved at the Annoyance, doing a lot of shows, and had a 2-person improv team. I had many teams that I played with, but I think that my favorite one, and the one that I love to do, was the one I did with my buddy Joe McDaniel. That's where that phone comes from.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a phone behind me over here, just like a on the wall little rotary phone. And our whole setup was I picked a song, the song played for about a minute, and then we start the scene. We just start a scene, and our tech person at any moment could ring the phone, like just hit the button and have a phone sound effect. And so they essentially were like the third part of our team, because they could, they'd have to have good timing and find moments. And then we'd pick up the phone and just play that way. Like nobody was on the other end, but it was just a fun thing to throw in there. So, and that was long form.
Ooh, right.
We'd have like 45 minutes to do a 2-person.
Well, this is where I have questions.
Sure.
Like, how do you know what to do?
Well, before we go into how we know what you do, I want to bring it back to Alex, because Alex was beginning to explain the different forms of improv.
Yeah.
And so let's get some of that context, and then that'll help.
Alex, enlighten me.
I was just going to sort of briefly touch on the differences, because the first thing, I don't know if this happens to you, Timmy, that when I'm like, oh, I do improv, and then people are like, tell me a joke, and I'm like,
nope.
No,
nope.
That's not how it works. And they're like, oh, I love such and such stand-up, and I'm like, that's also not.
If you just say the word comedian, people immediately think stand-up.
100%.
That's right.
And that is, I've taken a stand-up class, and it's hard. I can't. It's
way
not
different.
my thing.
Yeah, way different. Yeah.
But in our theater, what I was telling Timmy is when you join and start, they would put us, I don't know if they still do this format, but they would put us onto short form teams, which is like what you see on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Okay.
And so there's like two teams, and you're sort of competing in these very quick game, it's very structured, sort of easier to thrive in, I would say, if you're like a beginner, because the setups are generally pretty easy, whether it's physicality or like Whose Line does props, or and then you move into long form, which is what Timmy was talking about, and it sounds like your song was like your suggestion.
That's right. Yeah.
Sort of how it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you can get a suggestion, and then you build a whole world and a whole story for 30, 45 minutes, whatever your set is, 15 minutes.
Right.
So I'm currently on a Herald team.
Herald.
Which is long form, and it's formulaic, both. So you might like that.
Yeah. That sounds good.
It will be on this particular team. We's like, what's a word you like, right? And then someone shouts out a word.
Dildo.
Dildo.
You'll always hear somebody yell dildo.
Oh, like that's a...
You get a suggestion from the audience, right? Say a word, anything at all, or you can ask, what's a occupation your granddad had, right? You're taking a big risk if you say, give me a suggestion of anything at all, that somebody in the audience is going to yell dildo, right? And I love the teams that go with it, right? But most of them are like, all right, something other than that, because a lot of times you want to clean, you don't want, the audience thinks they're being funny. My go-to, I always yell gazebo. No matter what, I yell gazebo. And I do it the loudest and the fastest. If I'm watching a show, and they always do it. I've seen so many scenes about and around a gazebo. Just a great word.
It is fun to say.
It is a good word. Yeah. It almost doesn't matter what the word is because that's part of our craft, right?
Right. It's just a jumping off point. A jumping off point. But a lot of times they'll feature whatever suggestion they get, But
yeah, is Herald a name or is that a style?
It's a format, right? Okay. So each one of the there's also one called Armando. Basically, you talk to somebody in the audience often, or you invite somebody to come and tell a story, and then based on that story, you have an improv set. And with the Herald and with the Armando, both a lot of them are like, you'll have a scene, and then one member at some point can edit the scene by just running across the stage. Then you're in a new scene, right? 2 or 3 more, whoever pops out, and they start a new scene. And by the end of the Herald, if it's done well, you're kind of blown away because there's all these callbacks or scenes that come back, things that you find a way to tie it all together.
Yeah, I think for Bo's brain.
Yeah.
So we get like the word right, and the way we do it, and it might be different. And we have 6 people's ideal, and we start with 2 people come out and do like scene A, and then 2 different people scene B, 2 different people scene C. And so we're establishing 3 different like worlds essentially. And then we do a group game that is still sort of inspired by the word, or maybe it's inspired by where these scenes took us. Then after that group game kind of like washes through, then you're doing you're revisiting those 3 worlds again, but you're world building. And now it's richer, or we've time hopped, or something else has happened. And then all of your teammates can come in and they add to your world. And then all the while people are editing or whatever. And then we do another group game. So it kind of wraps those 3 up. And then after that group game, it's like this is where everything culminates at the very end. And sometimes like the scenes cross over if you pull someone from, so that's, while it looks like we're just kind of running around, there's like a lot of like, it's formula and strategy happening the entire time.
That can help answer your question of, how do you know what to do? There's a lot of these that have the outline. The audience doesn't know at all. All of a sudden, the 2 characters you saw at the beginning are back, and they're somewhere else in the story. But to an audience, they're like, whoa. There's a thing called a callback where you'll take something from before that the audience has forgotten about. But you as an improviser, you're like taking all these nuggets and really focusing on names that the people are calling each other, moments. And then when you're in the scene, you call back this joke that was told a few scenes before, right? And
I've seen that happen on Whose Line Is It?
Yes. Yeah.
Like they'll reach back and reapply the same idea or joke to like the new game or whatever. And
right.
I always think, oh, that was...
It's little things like that that can really blow an audience's mind because they don't know what's going on behind the scenes or what, improvisers are really paying attention to.
I get that different formats, knowing that there's somewhat formulaic, there's a plan at least, makes a lot of sense. Kind of gives you the framework to operate inside of.
Yes. Yeah.
Which makes a ton of sense. What are the rules though? Like here's the one improv rule that I know. You don't say no.
Right.
Right? It's always yes.
Yes and.
Yes and.
Yes.
So, like, there's got to be more rules, though.
That's
right?
the rule.
That's it? Like, that's the rule?
There probably are more rules, but I think the more you do it, then you know when it's okay to break some of them. Or if you know you're, like, Timmy had his partner, like their duo team, and they probably knew each other like the back of their hand, and they like knew how they could do things like you don't necessarily want to like be in an argument on stage, but I have some partners that like that's just really entertaining when we do that. Like when I'm the upset wife or whatever, like it's because it just makes for an interesting scene. I think you typically don't ask like yes and no questions because that doesn't make it interesting for the audience, you know.
Some people might call that like you're pimping out your partner by you're not establishing something, you're asking a question to get them to establish it, right? So one of the biggest rules is to don't ask each other questions. Make a choice and go with it. But like Alex was saying, just to echo, a lot of these rules that you learn are so fun to break. But you got to learn those rules and get really good at what those concepts, like why they're in place. And as your skill level goes up, you're able to break those and use those things you aren't supposed to do in a way that's super fun. You know, just like Alex said about arguing. Like that's one of the things Joe and I loved to do was get in an argument, right? But we know that the argument was pushing the story forward. One of the things about saying no or arguing is it's not going anywhere, right? You're talking about something often that you shouldn't spend too much time on because it gets boring.
It's still kind of on the amazing side to me, though.
Yeah.
Like I was in bed a couple nights ago, had the laptop, and I was watching Robin Williams on Whose Line.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know he was ever on it. And so...
He had blonde hair, didn't he?
Yeah, he looked really old, actually.
Yeah.
Until he started talking, I couldn't even tell it was him.
Right.
But I'm watching these guys thinking, how on earth did they come up with this stuff? You know, is there a... did you ever watch, was it called 8 Mile with Eminem?
Yeah.
Yes. I didn't watch it. No.
You haven't seen it?
Tell me. I know Eminem.
It's so good.
He's a freestyler who gets stage fright.
Oh.
And so he's always working on his lyrics.
Oh, Eminem.
Yeah, poor little feller.
Yeah.
He's always working on his lyrics, on his rhymes, so that when he does freestyle, he's freestyling from a place of preparation. And their battles, so they're responding to each other and stuff. But it's stuff he's already come up with, or versions of it that he can apply in the moment. Because I had a roommate in college who could freestyle. And he could just, in fact, Beamer could do this. Have you ever seen Beamer do this?
No.
Beamer, Alex, is our youngest brother. And he's an engineer by trade. You know, he's pretty quiet, pretty chill.
Yeah,
probably the most introverted of the siblings would be my guess.
By far.
But when he was a kid, he came out to California, and we gave him some Mountain Dew. And Autumn and I were in... We had that little band, and we had all our equipment set up in our little duplex thing. And he got some Mountain Dew in him and grabbed that mic and just started rhyming.
I vaguely remember this.
And I was like, what is going on? You know?
Yeah.
And I had a roommate in college who could freestyle, and it was always just really kind of amazing that he could just come up with these rhymes. But then I saw that movie, and I was like, these guys prepare all the time, so that in the moment they can come up with something really smart. Is improv kind of like that? Like, is there a sense that you've put a lot of preparation in, or is it more like, you know, I'm not going to think too much. I'm going to say yes and I'm going to roll with it and just try to turn my brain off, listen, and react.
Yeah, so for Eminem, right, the prep that he's doing, I imagine, is practicing rhymes.
Yeah.
Right? So that is just an exercise so that he can quickly find his rhymes, right? So that's exercising that muscle. So in the moment, he doesn't have to think too much. Whatever the story is being told through his freestyle, that's not prepared, but he's got those rhyming words at the ready, right? So if you give him a word, he can just rattle off everything that rhymes with it because he practiced that, right? It's in his body, it's in his muscles. And so with improv, we have a lot of improv games that we do that is very much, it helps you to prepare those muscles for when you get on stage. Like Alex was saying, like the first classes you take are a lot of improv games, right? In a lot of those improv games we see on Whose Line Is It Anyway? Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of my favorite of those games is called Freeze. You've got your class. There's 10 people in the class. 2 people will step out and start a scene. And at any moment, someone in the back line can clap their hands and yell freeze. Those 2 people are frozen. You go in, you tap one of them out, take the position they were in, and you start a new scene. Right? So this is teaching you how to be bold and just step out, right? Another People's Improv Theater in New York. Their whole thing is called Follow the Fear. It's just scary. You can easily freeze up because you're thinking, what do I say? What do I do? But if you can release that and just step out and trust that it comes, right? That takes practice. And what's great about that too is you're taking the position that they were already in. Mm-hmm. So that's inspiring right away. So I get into that position, I look at that person, and then I establish who they are, what's going on, what I'm doing, what is happening quickly, right? Like there's no asking questions. You establish it right there.
I was going to say it's like the best point I think of freeze, or if you don't know what to do, is like do something physical. Like I have someone in the theater who he'll just like sit down, or he'll do something weird with his body even if he doesn't know what he's about to say, and that hopefully will make you think of something if you had no clue what you wanted to do. Just step out.
You have to have each other's back, which is why you never say no. So if I sit on the ground and I'm just looks like I'm working on something, right? That actually gives you a gift to come in, or that gives you a gift because you see me doing something, and before anybody even knows what is happening, you can give me the gift of saying like, did you disarm that bomb yet?
Or takes an annoying amount of time to replace your license plate. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Right. And so, right. So immediately,
I did that last night. That's what made me think of that.
That was great. So if I'm doing that and you say that, now all of a sudden we have a car, you are annoyed. You are like picking on me. You know, you're obviously annoyed with my character for some reason. So there's that, in that one phrase alone, you have just created a depth that we can explore now, right? So you're like, it's taken an annoyingly amount of time to change that license plate, right? The reason I wouldn't want to say, no, I'm actually disarming a bomb is because I just shit on what you gave me, right? It makes you look bad. It makes me look bad. So the whole thing with yes and is whatever you give me, whether I think it's good or bad or whatever, none of that is the case.
You have to let go. Like Timmy believed he was disarming a bomb when he stepped into that scene. And the moment you said it was a license plate, you have to like throw that idea away. And I think when people start, sometimes they'll try to, like you said, they'll be like, no, it's a bomb. But like you absolutely, like, it does not matter what you believed it was. Like that thing is out the door, and it does make you so much more. Yeah, you're just open to like, this is what it was, and I'm releasing anything. Any control or anything I believe where I thought I was going to control the scene and make it go.
Right.
Which is really cool.
And in that situation too, it's ultimately, it's not, if I'm thinking it's a bomb, right? You come in, you change it. That's really great, because it should never be about the bomb. It should never be about the license plate. It's all ultimately about the relationship that we're creating, right? And where that goes and what's happening. Those are the most interesting scenes, is when you've got these characters. And that's one of the, like the big, the most common thing you see with new improvisers is a lot of the scenes become about an object or become about a certain thing that they just talk about that has nothing to do with their relationship. Nothing is being built in that way.
This is really kind of interesting, because when I'm in negotiations or when I'm talking with a prospect to try to get them to hire us or whatever, there's always the surface stuff. Look, we had a meeting with somebody earlier this week, and Alex, I'm really interested to hear how this has kind of played out for you. But the more you guys are explaining this, the more I can see this playing out. For instance, we had a meeting with a prospect earlier this week, and they got some land that they want to sell. Belong to the parents. They've passed away, and there's siblings. Okay. And one of them is the executor of the estate. And so we walk the property. We're not the first people in. So it's been listed before. There's been negotiations. There's been offers. None of that's worked. And a lot of times we like to be the second firm in or whatever. And this looks like it's going to be the case here. So we're sitting down with these folks, and I try to ask questions that get below the surface level stuff. Like, here's what's happened before. Here's what certain people think it's worth. And I'm like, 3 years from now, this is the strategic coach question.
Sure.
By the way. I'm like, 3 years from now, we're sitting here, property's sold. Like, what has to have happened over the last 3 years for you to be really excited that you hired us? The answer was, I don't have to deal with my siblings anymore.
Huh.
That was the answer. I did not see that coming.
Right.
It's not about price with these people at all.
Right.
It's the stuff that's below the surface.
Yes.
This land that they've inherited is causing a sibling issue. And this person we're talking about wants that resolved. So now I know exactly what I need to do to 3 years from now, put this person in a better position. I need to work to solve the problem so that it releases this issue between the siblings.
Yeah.
And ideally, their relationship is better in the future. So I'm actually trying to improve their relationship.
Yes.
It's not about just finding a buyer or getting the most amount of money. It's about improving the relationship. So now I know exactly what I can do to do it. And for the rest of our professional relationship, I am working towards improving this person's relationship with their siblings. Like, that's what my job is.
Yes.
And it's just trying to get below the surface. And in that moment, I'm asking a question and then I'm listening.
Yes.
And Alex, I wonder if, you've probably been in pitches where somebody goes in and they've got their canned pitch. We've been doing this for so many years. We've sold this many pieces of property. Got my CCIM designation, or it's about me,
that person
me,
pitching.
Me, me. Instead of just asking some questions and listening and following along, and then it's all about the relationship and how you can actually serve the future they're trying to create. And that's kind of sounds like the improv stuff you're describing.
I have to say, it's exactly it. It's exactly it.
I think not even commercial real estate specifically. Like I think the least interesting thing about people is like their job and like that kind of stuff. So I struggle sometimes in like business networking environments because like I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about like the deal you're working on, or like people's relationships and how they operate in this world is like a million times more interesting. I had 2 different gals in the same year. Their husbands passed away and they were trying to sell the building that they had owned together. And it was, it's a lot. Like, you're trying to solve this financial burden that they're facing. They have a lot of emotions because there's so much grief and loss. And so I think, just being that safe place for them, which is what an improv team is. Like, if you feel safe with your team partner, with your teammates, oh my God, like, you don't worry ever about having something to say. You do not care. You're like, yep, Timmy's got me. Like, I'm gonna walk out and he's gonna say something and that's it.
And that is interesting because in this negotiation that you're talking about is you found a way to have their back, but you wouldn't have been able to do that if you're just focused on yourself and trying to sell yourself. It really comes down to listening. And the best improvisers are good listeners. And the same with acting. Other than short form games, the best improvisers are the ones that are some of the best actors because they're able to be in that moment and listen and react based on what they're hearing. And they can really hear that other person and working at the top of your intelligence as well.
I wanted to talk about the top of your intelligence earlier when you were talking about dildo.
Yes.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. Is that a callback? Is that what a callback is?
Well, that was...
purpose. It was just...
I was really just making a joke, but...
You called back the callbacks.
It happens every once in a while. Yeah. Thanks for laughing,
You're
Alex.
an improviser.
Yeah. All right. Top of your
laugh,
intelligence.
so
What are we talking about here?
We, in our theater, Bo, strive to, like, we're never going to be, like, inebriated as a character. We're not gonna like talk about drugs. We're not gonna talk about dildos. Even if they gave me dildo as a suggestion, I would A to C it, as we call it, just something else I thought we could touch on, Timmy. But you like, okay, dildo makes me think of like batteries. Batteries make me think of remote control cars. So now I'm gonna initiate a scene where I have this remote control car or whatever. Like I think also while you're on stage and you're editing in your mind, you never want to be like offensive to any people anywhere, right? So you're making these scenes, or when you're making jokes, you're being as respectful and mindful as possible, all while you're making stuff up.
Right. So another term for that is punching down. You might have heard that. You know, you don't want to punch down on groups of people or individuals in your comedy, you, especially in a scene when you're improvising. You know, it's easy to find things to make fun of people for, right? That's an easy thing, and oftentimes does not go over well. The other thing I would add to that is treating the audience. Don't treat the audience like they're dumb, right? So by playing to the top of your intelligence, you're not punching down. You're not making fun of people. You're not trying to go for the easy joke or the obvious. You know, you want to play the scene, play the emotions, play the relationship, and treat the audience like they understand, right? Like they are smart enough to pick up on, you know, what you're laying down.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you're giving the audience credit.
Yes.
For being intelligent enough to hang with you.
Yes.
And you don't need to oversimplify. You don't need to, you know, just do the low-hanging fruit jokes.
Right.
But you can actually take something somewhere that could be a little bit more complex, and you just give the audience credit that they can hang with you.
That's right. And so with that gives you the freedom to tell the truth, right? To be truthful on stage, not to do something so absurd that somebody in real life wouldn't actually do, right? But so, I mean, there's a book called Truth in Comedy. And oftentimes when these moments where in real life, where people laugh at something you said, you know, a lot of times it's not when you were trying to make a joke. You said something that was truthful, and in response, you reacted truthfully to something. And humor comes from that, like the best humor. When you're not trying to be funny, a lot of times that's when, you know what I mean? Like Mom says exactly what you said just a minute ago. Like I can be funny too sometimes, right? When she makes a joke. But a lot of times when, I just think of Mom, because there are so many times she does something that is, or says something that is so funny. And after that, everyone laughs. She will say, I was not trying to be funny.
Right.
And it was I know, right. I mean, that's where the best improvisers are funny, is because they're not trying to be funny. They're not trying for a joke. You know, it depends on what kind of improv you are doing, but for most cases, the best improv is listening and playing the truth, reacting truthfully. You know, I might be a different character, but my character I'm playing has all the same, it's all a part of who Timmy is, you know, has different aspects of Timmy. So if you're going to say something and we've established what our relationship is, what is happening, you know, as long as I react truthfully to what's being laid down and add to it, you know, that's where the funniest moments come from. And it's so hard to put yourself there, especially a mind like yours, because you really want to think through what you're going to say and how you're going to react. And that would be the practice that you would need, the preparation you would need before going in, is playing a few games, improv games, where it just frees you up and puts you in that moment.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I was thinking I don't know what's on your list, Timmy, but for the how do you prepare or think of stuff, but I love Squirrel Nut Tree. I don't know if you...
I don't know this one.
Or it's to like A to C to help you like get ideas. So it's like if everyone's standing in a circle and there's 3 people are going to step out. So I step out and I say, squirrel. What do I think of when I think of squirrel? You come out and you say nut. And then the third person is like, what is like the like thing in those two?
Yeah,
tree.
Word association, right?
septic system.
Yeah, it's like a word
you know.
association.
Tree.
But that's sort of
septic
how we.
system.
Yeah, like the roots get into the septic system and busts it all up.
See, that would be a great thing that you bring. That I don't think anybody else would think, except for a commercial real estate professional. Squirrel, nut, tree, septic system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd get a lot of crazy looks, like,
Well, yeah, you probably got one from me, but like that was really funny, because that's what you thought of. The tree made you think of the tree roots that would up a septic system. I was like, I can bleep that out in post.
The point of Squirrel Nut Tree, the first person who comes out chooses their favorite word. So say it was like tree, everyone else backs out, and then you start it over, and someone's like, okay, tree makes me think of apple. But that's though like a way to exercise. When I get the suggestion of gazebo, then I'm not thinking I'm going to stand under this gazebo. I'm thinking of like, oh, gazebos remind me of, what is it? A wedding? Is it
Right.
picnic?
I thought romance, yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something romantic.
Yeah. Shelter, backyard, pool, the Joneses, neighbors.
Both thinking inspection,
No, I'm just following along, really, because like I see where your brain's going.
Right.
I think about cigars.
Yeah. Cigars.
Good.
Stinky.
Skunks. Roadkill.
Ooh.
Brothers. Has this raised more questions as we explain these things to you? I know I can see some things are clicking a little bit, but
No, I feel like I have a greater understanding of how the magic happens. Where before I was sitting there and it's like, this is just amazing. I have no clue. Now I feel like I have a little bit of a clue. I think you take somebody with a tremendous amount of talent and you run them through the reps and then clear your mind and press play, and it can just really be good.
yeah.
Whatever it is that the Second City does with like corporate trainings on improv and stuff. Like I can see how that can really benefit business in general, especially in commercial real estate.
Oh yeah.
It's so relational most of the time. And like, even when you're dealing with like an institutional situation where the person you're dealing with isn't going to be a mom and pop, they're not dealing with their siblings. They're probably an employee of the company who owns the property. Well, you can ask the same kind of questions, and what you'll finally drill down to is, am I going to be able to make them look good to their company?
Right.
We'll do a good job for you, but we'll also put you in a position where it looks like you made a great decision in hiring us. Then a lot of times it's just different, but there's still something below the surface that you can get to if you ask the right questions and you listen a lot.
Right.
As opposed to just promoting yourself.
Right.
Which is just boring.
It is. It is. And you could smell it from a mile away. That also comes from a place of desperation.
Yeah.
Right? Which just stinks. It stinks.
There's a stink to that for sure.
You want that sexy indifference, as Jason Bateman says.
Yes.
Right? The sexy indifference. I could live whether or not this deal is done. I don't need you, but I'm here for you. So tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or asking the right questions. Because with Strategic Coach, before you walk into that meeting or do a negotiation, right, you already have prepared what information you're trying to get from them.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But you don't know what information they're going to give you. And so that's when you got to be able to adapt and, I got that information. Now I know what we're working with. And, and then the goal there is to create a relationship with them based on that information they gave you, right?
Sure, even if they're on the other side, even if they're kind of your adversary in the negotiation, you still want to develop a relationship.
Yes.
It just allows you to work together better because essentially you want the same thing. Like you want there to be agreement at the end.
Another thing too that you do so well that I got a lot of comments when people would come see our show, the two person. because you don't see this. And Alex, I'm curious about, because it's in short form, you got to do things real fast and quick, right? But when you got long form, the experience of watching somebody who's just great at letting the scene breathe. You know, they don't have to jump to something real quick. You soak it in. We had one show where for the first like 3 or 4 minutes, we didn't say anything.
Yikes. That's
Yeah,
scary to do that.
it is so scary because you want to come up with something, you want to say something. Silence is uncomfortable in real life all the time, but to be able to just sit there and be comfortable in that moment, that's a really good practice of not trying to force anything, but letting things happen. And having these moments where I look over just to see what he's doing and we meet eyes and then we both look away. That says a whole lot about our characters in that moment. You know, we either aren't talking and at odds, maybe we're strangers that are, you know, just we accidentally met eyes and we're going to end up talking. There's just so much now that you can play within when you let things breathe, you know, and not jump to needing to say something or get there. And I think that's why 45 minutes for us worked so well, is because we were very, I guess you could call it slow, right? But it wasn't slow. We just weren't speeding through things. Go
I
ahead.
love that you took that time at the beginning, because sometimes when you let it breathe, the audience is even more like they're buying in more.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what is gonna happen? Like I've been sitting here for 3 minutes, like what is going to happen? And they're like on the edge of their seat. So I kind of love that.
Yeah.
Or long pauses in the middle of the scene.
Yeah, it builds anticipation, and through that energy of anticipation that you can feel from the audience, and these little moments, like I just remember the look that we gave each other and we looked away, got a huge laugh. You know, nobody understood what was going on, but they've all been there in some way, shape, or form, and it's uncomfortable. They are uncomfortable.
Well, this is me and my daughter, Maddie, my daughter, Alex, named Maddie. Like, we go to the gym in the mornings, and then I take her to school. And we rarely say anything on the drive to school. It's a very, very comfortable silence.
Yeah.
Like, we're so comfortable with each other that there's not a lot. So this morning, like you were describing that, and I was thinking about our drive to school this morning.
Yeah.
I stopped by the dry cleaners. I do this about every other week.
Yeah.
And I picked up some shirts, and she looked at me. She's like, how often do you do this? That's what she said. I was like, well, you're with me every time, kid. So like, you know, every other week. And she was like, okay, you know.
Yeah.
And then we're pulling into the parking lot, the high school parking lot, your high school actually, you know. And she just reaches over and kind of flicks me on the arm. Yeah. It's like a love tap kind of thing, you know. It's like, that was it. She gets out, have a good day, kid, love you kind of thing.
Right.
But it was like I could see you and
Joe
just sitting there next to each other, like you're in a car, like you don't even have to talk.
That's
You
right.
Look at each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe all of a sudden there's
And also, like, just to add to that, like, the goal in that moment, too, is not to sit there and think of what's the best thing to say. It is to sit and live in that moment and be present and let it come when it comes. And a lot of that comes from the energy that the audience has given you and things. So ultimately, when something is said, you really can't go wrong with what it is, unless you're trying to be funny with what you said. When you break the silence to establish the relationship, you know, just to sit there, there's that silence, and then to, you know, just be like,
are we there yet?
yeah, are we there yet? Yeah. Mom, are we there yet? You know, establish that it's your mom you're sitting next to with no talking, or, you know, it's funny moments. Yeah.
Especially if it's a dude sitting next to you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I love
Right.
the point of presence to me that I think improv is a beautiful outlet. And I know this isn't business related, but I think I've gone through like some of the hardest times, and the moments where I had like light and levity when you're doing improv, because you cannot think about the past or the future or whatever. You are so present.
Yeah.
And it's like this weird, I don't know, it like relieves anything.
I
but
agree.
to be able to do that, to pull that from improv into like everyday life. Like, I am in this meeting, I'm going to be present with this person, not about how I'm going to respond or that I gotta feed the kids after work or whatever it is, but to like just be present is a gift.
It's very meditative in a way, because that's what you do. That's the goal when you meditate, is to be present, to focus on, try not to focus on anything, but I always come back to the breathing, breathing, and try to rid yourself of all thoughts of the future or, it's peaceful, and being in that moment, to free yourself from second guessing yourself, which I tend to do all the time when I'm talking, almost stop mid-sentence because I'm like, what I'm saying is stupid, or Tar's not listening to me. Why am I, doubt and second guessing. It really helps to break through that and just let things be as they are and live in it. And then you're not reacting to the fake conversation you had in your head with your wife. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or with somebody that you might feel at odds with, but not sure why. And so you go over in your head over and over, what could it be? And then you have like this conversation with that person in your head. And then all of a sudden you're treating that person like that conversation was real.
Oh, you just described my life.
Right, yeah.
No, that's what I do all the time.
Yeah.
I've had all kinds of arguments with my wife in my head that never actually happened.
Right.
But then I have the residue of it.
Yeah.
Like it impacts how I feel.
Yeah.
I had a terrible dream last night. And I like my wife was mean to me in my dream. Oof. And I woke up and I wanted a hug. You know what I mean? It was it was a very weird kind of, and it was early. It was probably like 4:30 in the morning or whatever. So I didn't wake her up and get a hug, but I did look over there and just make sure that, all right, that was a dream. That's good.
Yeah. Well, hey, you ready for a pop quiz?
Yeah, give me a pop quiz.
Alex, typically Bo gives me a pop quiz, and he'll throw me 5 questions, most of the time based on what we had talked about, whatever topic. And when we got a guest, the guest gets to ask questions. So we'll go back and forth. You can start with the first question. We're just pretty much going to quiz Bo on what we talked about today. You can ask any question you want, but oftentimes, I've got some improv questions I want to throw his way.
And I've taken some notes. This is my first time ever in the hot seat for the pop quiz, so we'll see how this goes. So
Alex,
feel free to be as gracious or difficult as you'd like to be.
See, he's scared now.
Yep.
How would you describe playing to the top of your intelligence?
So this is you're not punching down was a phrase that you're not going after the low-hanging fruit. You're giving the audience credit for being able to follow where you're taking them.
Yeah.
Right. So it allows you to be more authentic, more true, and just giving them the credit to be able to follow along. You don't have to oversimplify. You don't have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that?
Well, to rephrase what? No, I'm kidding. That was spot on. A lot of.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know if we specifically said this, right? There are different types. Like we mentioned the Herald, Armando, who's like what they do in Who's Line, different games. But there are improv is
Short form and long form?
That's it. Yeah, the 2 forms of improv, short form, long form. Very good. 2 for 2. 2 for 2. Question 3.
I'm
Back to you, Alex.
to gain some confidence here. So hit me with question 3.
What are the rules of improv?
Oh, well, the one was it's always yes and, right? But there were some other things that you guys mentioned that sounded kind of like rules. Like you always have each other's backs. What else? If you don't know what to do, maybe you do something physical with something that you said. Like these could be kind of maybe more like tips and
Yeah,
tricks
those are
kind
more-
of
yeah.
stuff. You don't ask yes/no questions or generally any questions. You want to make a call and go with it, and trust your partner to follow along and build off what you're laying down. So
Yes.
is that good?
You're a phenomenal student.
Yes, that's really good. I'd say that's right. Yes, and is like the number one rule, and from that, don't ask questions. Right, that's a rule. That's fun to break when you can, but like, don't ask questions. Don't punch down. The other ones were like, little tips. Little tips. All right. What form of improv would Whose Line Is It Anyway be considered?
Would be short form.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, bunch of little games.
Very good.
That was
Yeah.
a gimme.
That's right. Yeah, that was a gimme. That was a gimme. All right. Well, follow up question. No, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just
No, yeah,
going
do
to
a
state
follow-up.
for the record that I'm 4 for 4 so far, but you have a follow-up?
I got a follow up to
Okay.
that. Yeah.
All right.
Name me 3 cast members of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
So you have Drew Carey, you have the Wayne guy, right?
Wayne Brady.
Yes, thank you. And then, Robin Williams was on it. I don't know if you'd call him. He wasn't like a
No, he was on that
regular.
episode. Yeah, but no.
There's to Glenn,
No.
the
Glenn?
and Phil, Mark.
The tall,
Andrew.
thin guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alan.
No, not Alan.
I can just keep saying names until
Yeah.
I hit on something.
What-
and you can just
That's
Ryan
fun.
Stiles? Is
Yes,
that
Ryan
called?
Stiles.
Ryan.
Ryan
I don't
Stiles.
know. What's the bald gentleman?
Colin Mockery.
Mockery?
His
think
last name is Mockery.
I think so, yeah.
What a
No.
beautiful name for an
Yeah.
improv guy.
It's Irish name. So it's not
Mochrie. Yeah, Mockery. Right?
Mockery, yeah. Colin Mockery. Colin Mockery. Alex, final question is yours.
No,
A to C.
I liked that. Maybe more of a request. Why don't you pick? So Timmy has gazebo as his like pocket suggestion. So like, what is going to be your pocket suggestion anytime you're in an improv audience and they ask for a suggestion?
They just ask for a word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you got one, Alex?
I actually don't.
Yeah.
People like to. We asked for like your favorite. Like we got candelabra the other night, which I think was really cool. I think we get some like when we say what's your favorite word, we get like really unusual, fun to say kind of words.
Oh, yeah.
I've never considered like what's my favorite word before.
Yeah.
Like I've just never thought about it. I do sometimes say like, ooh, that's fun to say.
Uh-huh.
But I can't think of any of those words right now.
I learned a new word, I think, yesterday. It's gone. I gotta look it up. I gotta look it up. Oh, God.
The antithesis of loquacious.
Loquacious.
That's the word.
There's a word.
I like that
There
word.
it is.
Loquacious is fun to say.
Yeah. Loquacious. Yeah. What does that mean?
Verbose.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. Loquacious. Loquacious.
Lots of words.
But see, look.
Gum
through-
flapping.
Through that, we got you there, right? When you're trying to think of something, it wasn't there. But when you released it and you were just listening to me try to get a word, then your response when I couldn't get it
No, this
came
is
up
true.
with some really good words. That's a great example of what happens in the moment when magic happens.
In fact, most of my good ideas in life have been piggybacks on somebody else's initial idea. Like I rarely have the initial thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like most of the, and I've rarely had an original thought.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's some kind of piggyback.
You are
on-
yes-anding.
Yes, I and.
Yes, and. That's right. That's yes, and right there. Yeah,
cool.
that's it.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good button to this episode.
Button.
Oh, like a,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was a good little
we'll-
wrap up there.
We'll just like
Yeah. Alex, where can people find you if they want to find you? Or do you want people finding you?
If you have commercial real estate needs in Tucson, I do want you to find me. Picor.com is our website, Picor. You can find me there. And then if y'all and the viewers are Instagram people, at the THEE Alexandra Marie is my handle. Less commercial real estate, probably more improv and acting.
Sweet.
And
Sweet. Well, you got a new follower here.
That's right. Yay! Commercially speaking will be.
And 2, Timmy Barron. I'll follow you. Marie.
Oh, yes.
Okay, cool.
The
Alexander Marie with 2 E's in the D. Great.
Yeah.
I'll put that in the show notes. Y'all can look at that in the show notes now. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit subscribe. Ding that little bell. Please leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. That really helps a great deal to get this into more listeners. If you write a review, we will shout you out on the next episode. So definitely do that.
I do have some shout outs.
Speaking of, we got some shout outs.
Yeah, and this isn't even like a traditional shout out, but last night I'm at Panera Bread with the family.
Yeah.
And at the table next door.
Shout out Panera Bread. All right.
Sponsor us. Yeah, whatever.
All right. Have a good night.
But I'm sitting there with the family, and my wife looks at me, and she goes, "That's Miss Jones right there." Miss Jones was my Algebra 2 teacher my freshman year in high school. And she's sitting at the table next to us, tutoring one of Maddie's friends, who's the same age as I was when she was my teacher.
Oh, wow.
And so I got to go over and talk to Mrs. Jones a little bit. And I can't remember the last time I saw her.
Sure.
And it was, it's literally been 33 years.
Wow.
Since she was my teacher. And that was cool. And then this morning I'm in, this one has more to do with actually the podcast. This morning I'm at the gym and I'm in the locker room and, I've worked out, sat in the hot tub for a minute. I'm about to take a shower. And this guy walks next to me, and he's like, "Hey, my wife loves a podcast." His wife was my 6th grade math teacher.
Oh, my goodness.
Miss Paula Roberts.
Whoa.
So shout out to Miss Roberts, who loves the podcast.
Oh, nice. Hey, Miss Roberts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And shout out to Miss John. You're 2 of your math teachers.
2 of my math teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a special person to be a math teacher.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. And I also want to invite all of our listeners to go to subscribe.wgbarron.com, and you can sign up for our weekly newsletter. It's the Commercially Speaking newsletter. It'll promote, the episode of the week. And it also includes curated, some of it's commercial real estate, some of it's just good business content, probably 5, 6, 7 articles a week that they go out every Thursday morning.
Awesome.
And so we'd invite you to subscribe to the newsletter. We'd love to have you.
Awesome. Yeah. All those links you can find in the show notes. Make sure you follow the Alexandra Marie on Instagram. And if you're in the Tucson area, Picor.com. Alex, thanks so much for being here with us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's so fun.
Yeah. Improv and CRE.
All right. And if you ever make it to Owensboro, we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do an episode of you guys doing improv games.
Well, I want to do some. One thing I was thinking of was getting you to do some improv games with us. But I think I'll prepare. I want to get some more. The only thing I could think of was zip, zap, zop, and like word association, like you were talking about. I know there's better ones, but we'll save that for next time.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll save that for next time. That'll be super fun. Cool. We'll catch you all next Monday.
Bye, Alice.
Bye, Alice. Did she say bye?
Well, there she is.
Yay!